Live. All right. Hello, my lovey. We are live this morning, nice and early, for Espresso Yourself with Leslie Lindsay Davis and myself, Melissa Trumbull. And today we are talking about reframing. Let's get our reframe on. When we have a failure, when something takes us 87 times longer than we thought it would, when when the tech be teching and we just can't get our email train set up, or whatever it is you're trying to do that you've done easily before and now it's just so flippity flargan difficult. Let's talk about how we can reframe that and make ourselves feel closer to success as opposed to roiling in the bad feels. So, Leslie, what do you do when, Zoom be zooming for you, or whatever it is that's driving you ballistic?
And you would bring up Zoom because it is Zoom. I have decided, I tell my husband all the time that these inanimate objects, these technical things, do not spend their hours during the night plotting to make his life difficult. And
And
he
how's that
keeps
feel?
telling me, yes, they do.
Yeah.
Well, Zoom and I are not on speaking terms at the moment. It doesn't make any difference how many Google Meets I do, or we are currently on StreamYard or River, whatever. I can do 100 of those in a row
Yeah.
with zero problem.
Right.
The moment I go over to Zoom, nothing but.
Right. So let me interject, my dear friend who's joining us. Miss Leslie is one of those unicorns that tech always just works. Like if it's supposed to do the this when you press that, then it just does for Leslie until Zoom rears its ugly head and behaves a bit glitchy, like software does. And she's losing her marbles because literally this is the first time she's ever had to deal with tech being glitchy and not doing what it should do, which I find a freaking scream because, I do things and they're just like, maybe I will, maybe I won't. That's how tech works for me. I get into like a seductive persuasion situation, like I'm Benjamin freaking Franklin, and persuading everyone to vote for the Constitution of the United States. So back to you, Leslie. Let's talk about how do we reframe those feels when we're in the moment and going bananas.
Well, the first thing that I had to do was to recognize I'm only in control of me and I'm only in control of my reaction. But the thing actually, let's go back, let's back the bus up just a tiny, tiny bit. What I started feeling was that I was failing at doing something. And that all of a sudden, despite my ability to solve all these random puzzles, suddenly I was not able to solve this puzzle and I was failing. And I had to pull myself up really short with the aid of my dear friend, Mel, over there on the East Coast. I'm on the Gulf Coast. Um, and recognize, no, I wasn't failing. Zoom was just being Zoom, and I had no control over Zoom. And it wasn't a failure. It was simply a first attempt in learning. And when we start reframing, let me just tell you a quick story. The first time I heard the word reframe, I was like, what are all these people doing going to Hobby Lobby and buying new picture frames?
We're not decorating.
That I was really confused. And so I had to go home because I didn't want to admit, in the midst of all these people that were, happily talking about reframing, I didn't want to admit to anyone I had no clue what they were talking about other than going to Hobby Lobby and buying a whole slew of frames and redoing their pictures.
All right. Well, we'll just get into that as a sidebar. Like, why not say, like, hey, guys, clue me in. What's this reframing magic you're talking about? Like, what's wrong with that?
No, Leslie was not going to do that
We're at the tip of
because
the iceberg here, people. Just say.
Leslie was not going to admit to a weakness.
Okay. All right. We're just gonna leave that there. We'll put a pin in it, like they say in the cop dramas. So anyway, Nutter Butters, there you are, looking at this going on.
Yes, but I'm grateful for people like you because you helped me to come back into reality and to understand that what I'm not in control of Zoom, and maybe Zoom does have a glitch, and maybe it isn't on speaking terms with my microphone and my camera at the moment. But you know what? It's not a reflection on me, and that's where the reframing comes in.
Right.
Let us pull up short on those thoughts that we are having, those unhelpful thoughts, those unhelpful ideas, and let's examine it. What is really true? What
Mhm.
is the story that we are creating to make ourselves feel better? Or what is the story that we are creating so that it fits into our world versus what is actually going on?
Mhm.
And that's what reframing is. Let's take those unhelpful thoughts, let's put a pause in them, let's examine them, let's determine, is this true? Isn't this true? Am I making up a story so that it makes sense to me? Or is there a different way to look at it? And that's all that reframing really is.
Right.
Let's take those unhelpful thoughts and let's turn them into something that either we can A, do something with, or B, set aside because they're just not going to serve us.
Right. And I also would say let's take about reframing in a physical sense with a camera. So if I'm looking at something and I've got my lens so that I see whatever's in this square, well, if I then rotate over the thing and look at it from another angle, I'm seeing another facet of the problem, another aspect, and then I can look at it in a different way with detached curiosity. Like, huh, okay, this is what's happening. Interesting. Well, what am I telling myself? Like Leslie was saying, is it true? And then you get into, well, what is true? Like, what actually is true? Is Zoom conspiring with the universe to assault
Yes.
me with stress? No, probably not. You know, like we're not in the Megatron world or whatever, but then we get to look at it and have that dispassionate response. Like, let's get our stoicism on, and just look at how we're feeling. Oh, look at that reaction. It's outsized. Or, okay, I see, I'm upset, whatevs. And then we get to look at what's really actually going on and tell ourselves the true tale of what's going on is that they've updated it yet again. And now I'm in beta 11.4.78 and where I'm going to have problems with this for 48 hours. And then they're going to have a different problem when they update it again.
Well, and the other piece of that is, as you said, you can observe how you are feeling. And when we get into reframing, it's really important that we observe how we are feeling and we name the feeling that we are feeling. Because oftentimes, prior to the reframing, we are fighting what we are really and honestly feeling. Reframing allows us to honestly name the emotion that we are honestly experiencing. And it also allows us to have an opportunity, as you said, to shift what the camera is focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many times we take that camera lens of our life and we focus on the things that they really are not what we need to be focusing on. Either we cannot do anything about it, or it's not in our purview to do something about.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing. Remember, you've got like two circles. One is everything, all the concerns, all the cares. And this little one, that's the circle that holds all of the concerns and cares that we can affect change. And typically it's stuff happening in our perspective with our reaction. It's expectation that is causing us the agita. We expect it to work seamlessly and we're irritated when it doesn't, or whatever, name your emotion that you're feeling. And if instead we can release those expectations and just handle whatever it is that's happening, like, oh, I'm going to have to restart again, or like whatever it is, like, oh yeah, I got to get on 5 minutes early if it's going to be using this platform, just to be sure. Oh, great, it worked. I can go get more coffee, or whatever your elixir of life is. I know, Leslie, you're sleepy time.
Diet Coke in the appropriately colored glass, I might note.
Thank you. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your foibles with Zoom. I appreciate it. I know this is a safe space. It's okay to be vulnerable as we deal with our whether it's something seemingly silly like the frustrations with tech, or the serious frustrations with a client not wanting to affect change as much as you know that they can, or something at work where you've got yet another unreasonable deadline or something. Okay, you can't do anything about what other people do. You can reframe what's going on inside your own mind and give yourself the opportunity to focus on one piece at a time and move it forward as much as you can, communicate with whoever is, needing the thing done on the deadline, and make sure everyone's up to speed. Like, that's what you can do. So keep that in mind, because when things get cloudy and murky and ugly, then if we can just disengage from the feels, get curious about what's actually going on, and tell ourselves the truth about it, then boom, that's the good stuff. Thanks again, Leslie, for joining us.
Always fun, Mel.